I feel the need to state this right away, as always now. Everything in this video is my opinion after playing the game for about 10 hours to get a first impressions. And I'll be honest, these are the hardest videos to make. You're probably asking why right now. Well, it's because Hades 2 is really fun, and I've enjoyed my time with it. And I haven't found anything that's a glaring flaw that I can point out in the game that I really don't like. There's just like some really nitpicky things. It's not that I hate making positive videos about games, but I know that no game is perfect and there's always some kind of flaw that you could point at within a game as a dislike or an annoyance. I haven't found any of those like major flaws that make me dislike something about this game. Even with games that I love like Hellblade, I can see the flaws and the imperfections there. But with Hades 2, I haven't found that yet. I genuinely enjoy Hades 2's story and mechanics. I think their level designs are decent and their progression system is interesting. I'm not someone who put a lot of time into the original Hades after its early access period with its full release. I put in about 20 hours right when the game was released into early access on the Epic Games Store, and a little more time when it fully released, but I don't think I ever fully beat it, or if I did, I don't remember that I did. But there's a thing I do remember about the game, and that's the game's level design. And this is probably the biggest nitpick that I have with Hades 2. I would like Oceanus and Tartarus's level designs to feel different. Erebus, I'm fine with feeling like the original Hades level design. It's a good way to introduce or reintroduce players back into the Hades style of levels and what you're going to be doing for most of the game. But I'd like to see them change Oceanus and Tartarus into more experimental level designs as they did with Fields of Morning. Because personally, I like the Fields of Morning just because of how different it is from the other levels in Hades and Hades 2. I just think that would make the game a little more interesting and add some variety to how players will explore their levels. Like maybe making it a multi-tiered level or something like that. Like just something that is a bit more experimental than just kind of the same layout, but a bit different. I don't know. I don't know. I bet there are people who don't really like the Fields of Morning. I personally did, just because it was new and interesting. The other nitpick I have with the game at this point is the resource collection mechanics. It's just kind of annoying bringing one tool with you per run. I get that the game's progression relies on the resources you collect with these tools, but it feels like whatever tool I bring that time, only like one or two of those resource nodes appear during each section. And the ones, you don't have appear a good amount more frequently. But in the end, it kind of evens out since you only need like a few resources per incantation. And that's it. That's mostly it for what I think of for things to nitpick about the game. Sure, maybe there's other smaller things, but those are like the two things I can think of that I really would nitpick about the game. Otherwise, I've been having a great time with Hades 2. I think the story puts an interesting spin on Greek mythology with Hades and most of his family being captured by the Titan Kronos, and the Olympians helping Melinoe fight through the underworld to reach and defeat Kronos, and check out like the surface and stuff. I think it's an interesting twist. It's like what God of War does with Norse mythology, and putting its own spin on it, and I think it's really interesting, because honestly, I really like mythology stuff. And the same can be said for a lot of the combat. It's fast-paced a lot of the time, and I think it feels great. But things like the Omega attacks and the cast kind of slow combat down a good bit, because it slows you down to a walking speed as you're charging the bigger attacks that use mana, and opens you up to a good amount of hits if you're not careful. I don't think it's that much of a detriment to the combat though, because you can build into increasing the casting speed of those attacks, and you can augment them through boons and arcana. And the boons, just like with the original Hades, make every single run fun and different because, it's a roguelike. It's supposed to be that way. Each run is supposed to be similar but different. Like for me, the one time that I have reached Tartarus, I concentrated on picking up Hephaestus's boons to amplify his break or eruption mechanic, whatever it's called, on my attack and my special. And with the boons, it feels like there's a lot of utility and requirement ones over, flashy ones this time. At least from what I've gotten. The flashiest one that I've gotten is Apollo's cast, but everything else is just kind of, it hasn't been that flashy within the game. I also noticed that there is a good amount of health or mana requirement on different boons. I can understand it for Selene because the moon attack is really powerful, but some of the others, I don't choose them because of those requirements. Ones that make you keep your health above a certain amount feel like they don't have enough of a benefit for me and my playstyle compared to other ones that are there. Then there's all the other stuff that they do outside of the actual runs that it just makes the game interesting. You have some of the same features from the original Hades. Heirlooms, 5 weapons, talking to the other god or hero characters like Nemesis, Odysseus, Hecate, Dora, the ghost that's there, Shelamius, the skeleton guy that you can kick the shit out of. Just like a few different characters from Greek mythology. I think it's interesting. Then you also have like the list of fates for different quests that you can do. The broker where you can buy specific items you need at that time with bones. I was like, there's a lot of stuff they brought over from the original Hades. It's the same. It's basically the same with like a little bit of change. Then you have like the new version of the Mirror of Night, which is the Altar of Ashes. And this is where the game kind of gets more interesting. Here you unlock different Arcana cards that augment your character with different passives. Omega moves make everything go slower for 2 seconds. You can restore life points after every room, gain max life and magic, etc. This is where you unlock like Death Defiance also. And I like this system a lot more because the Mirror of Night in Hades was kind of boring with what they did for the stat boosts and things like that. And the Altar of Ashes is it's a more interesting way of doing it, I think. Then you also have the Cauldron, which you make incantations at to unlock things by giving it certain resources to complete the incantation. This unlocks different things within the hub area, which is the crossroads, or within the levels themselves, like unlocking Charon's wells or different healing areas. This is the game's main progression system. This progression system isn't really anything to write home about. It's your basic collect resources and turn them in to unlock new things. That's fine though. It works as a progression system. Like you get one incantation to move the story forward, and then you get other optional side objective incantations to help you along the way and unlock more potential and more power for your character. All in all, I'm really enjoying my time with Hades 2. It builds on the solid foundation that was established within the original Hades and expands on those ideas into a few new interesting concepts. Are there some small nitpicky things I can point out in the game? Yes, but I don't see any major flaws that need to be addressed by Supergiant during Hades 2's early access period. I think what they have is fantastic, and I'm having a shit ton of fun with it. And I think they just need to keep experimenting with level designs and trying to add some new things during this time. Add in some new bosses, keep adding in more like enemy variety, things like that. Just expanding on what Hades 2's foundation is right now and just build it out. If I was to give the game a ranking via like my personal system, it would sit somewhere between I love it and fun but with a problem. Because of it being a roguelite, which isn't really my favorite genre of games. It's not that I don't like them, but I'm not a person who will go and do 1,000 runs in a game and just keep, jump in, die, run it back. I'm not a big fan of that type of game. That's why I don't play like extraction shooters all that often. But that's really all I have to say about Hades 2. If you enjoyed this video that I actually found really hard to make and really hard to write, please do all the algorithm stuff. Like, subscribe, turn on the notification bell, all that crap. And I hope to see you back here in 2 weeks when I talk about the sequel to one of my favorite gaming experiences, Hellblade 2: Senua's Saga. And I hope you have yourself a royal day.